Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 1:28 p.m. on Monday the 4th of May 2026. It's so deathly quiet in the neighbourhood because it's a public holiday today, Labour Day, in Queensland and in other parts. I think in the Northern Territory it's May Day. But anyway, everyone's hunkered down in their houses, doing whatever they're doing, relaxing hopefully, but they're so quiet, so very, very quiet. Will they die with their mouths open like the mummy? Possibly, if they care enough to break the silence and join in the resonant voices of protest and dissension at the decline of Western civilization. On the other hand, it's a beautiful day. It's 26 degrees Celsius today. It's quite hot. The last few days, not so much yesterday. Yesterday was pleasant, but a few days prior to that, it started to get the autumn chill. And now today it feels like a, summery day. So it's quite astonishing. Swings and fluctuations in our temperatures at the moment. that kind of hurt. I finally brought the little birdie boys outside in the garden. They could have been out since this morning, but I was distracted looking at a YouTube video on all the uses of 3%, or if you water it down to 1.5% hydrogen peroxide, which apparently is good for cleaning earwax and cleaning teeth. So I gave it a bit of a go with that because I feel dreadful. So I thought, well, if I can, sort out my eustachian tubes and sort out my teeth, might get on the road to recovery. Might not, might be too little too late, but I figure natural remedies can't hurt since the chemical cocktails haven't really assisted me either. It's a choice, living your best life, dancing wildly and carefree. And I had a bit of a dance yesterday at the Hotel Morrison with my friend Tarina, and another lady was looking at us. Her eyes were like this, in amazement, as if she'd never seen people dance before. I said, come on. We might be older, but we're not dead yet. You can get up and dance with me if you like. Come and join me so we're not the only ones up here and we don't look so silly, and you two can have a bit of fun. She said, oh, my husband loves dancing. But he just sat there and stared at her like he was evacuated out of his soul. But then he nodded quite, encouragingly when he saw that she was loving dancing with me. She even pressed her shoulder up against me. And we got on like peas and potatoes. Her and I and Tarina, we danced joyously to the blues band. And when they finished, because we only unfortunately got up for the last 3 songs, I said to the band, encore, encore. And they looked at me a little bit astonished, but it's a compliment to be asked for an encore, as any musician in a band will tell you. So they said, oh, well, we'll play a song by Muddy Waters or Muddy something. Tarina went, oh, good, because she obviously knew that band. There's a lot of bands I don't know because I don't have very good musical erudition because of my weird fucked up childhood. I could have caught up by now, but I guess I've learnt by osmosis by dancing for wild bands. Anyway, they were so sweet, the 5 men in that band. They played this last song by Muddy Waters, I think it was, And it was a long song, so we got a long dance in. And I hammed it up as I do. And the other lady who had joined us, I think she joined us for the second last song and that song. We danced and she was so happy, and even her friends were looking at her and smiling because they could see she was happy, and her husband was nodding. And I thought, you know, if that was the only reason I was there to invite someone into the dance and the joy that is the dance, give them confidence and courage and enthusiasm and vibrancy, then my mission there was well accomplished. I was very happy about that. And anyway, when we went to leave, because my friends Robin and Peter had said, when you come back, we're leaving. I said, okay. So as I walked past the lady that I had invited to dance with me, I said, thank you for dancing with us. And she reached over and kissed my cheek. So it was really heartfelt and gorgeous and lovely. So gradually we're breaking down the nanobot culture where dancing seems to be being discouraged, which is awful. I noticed even the musicians, when they saw us dancing and joining in, even their eyes lit up and they played with a little bit more pep and enthusiasm, because, you know, it's nice to have people just sitting, drinking and passively listening. You know, they're going to play the music either way. But there's something very rousing about having dancers join in and dance to your music. It's the highest compliment you can give, apart from clapping at the end, you know. But anyway, I cheered them and I clapped them all, and I danced, and Tarina danced beside me. And then they all looked at her and I said, she's on newborn baby knees. What, they said? I said, 3 months ago, she had knee surgery. Look at her go. And Tarina was jiggering around. And the ladies at that table and the husband were like astonished. Yes, us trauma survivors, we're very vital, life-affirming, determined, stoic, courageous and life-embracing people. But we kind of astonish people sometimes. Even when we walked away, they said, there she goes, the lady with the newborn baby knees. And she nodded. I'm very proud of her. It's been very painful. She's probably a bit sore today, truth be known. We didn't dance more than 4 songs, but it's still a lot when you've not long ago had surgery, you know. So she'll be resting, no doubt. I hope she's resting anyway. I've had a kind of a rest day today. And apart from watching videos learning about hydrogen peroxide, they also recommended using it to sterilise your wooden cutting boards. I'm going to do that in future too. I tend to chop mostly on these horrible plastic ones I bought in IKEA, but I do have quite a few wooden boards that, you know, I do use on occasion, so I think I'll be doing that, sterilising those. They said the Amish sterilise every time they chop vegetables on them. They, you know, spray it with 1.5% hydrogen, which is 3% mixed 50-50 with water. I used filtered water because I use filtered water for drinking anyway. And they give it a spritz and then they give it a rinse off. Well, you know, they wash it and then they spritz it and then they rinse it off. Oh, what an excellent idea. Apparently they kill all the mould and the old grout in the houses, which I'm going to have a go with that because I've got a lot of mould in this old house too. It's probably contributed to my health issues. And, you know, baby steps. Tarina's got newborn knee replacement and I've got a newborn attitude to return to the old ways, the ways that worked before we all got poisoned and indoctrinated and things that don't even bloody work half the time or are anti-humanistic. So that's my thinking anyway. Might be too little too late for me at 61, but if you start now, if I'm meant to survive all this, in 10 years I could be a whole different version of myself. Older and wiser, but, you know, hopefully healthy enough given my time of age at that time period. There you go, I'm giving myself 10-year increments. Every time it rolls around, I go, all right, well, we'll go for another 10 years and another. Honestly, we have no way of knowing at the time of our death. It is ordained by God. But just keep moving forward as if there is some kind of wonderful future at the end of all this strange existence. We continue on with reading. Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage by Alice Munro. Johanna had to hurry. That woman's need for conversation had delayed her. She was hurrying to be back at the house, her purchase stowed away, before Sabbatha got home from school. Then she remembered that Sabbatha wasn't there, having been carried off on the weekend by her mother's cousin, her Aunt Roxanne, to live like a proper rich girl in Toronto and go to a rich girls' school. But she continued to walk fast, so fast some smart aleck holding up the wall of the drugstore called out to her, "Where's the fire?" And she slowed down a bit, not to attract attention. I would have just kept going how I was going. Why would you modify yourself because of some leering bloody male? Honestly, the fear that's innate and built into our female psyche is astonishing. It's something we have to battle against on a daily basis, people of all. But you get to a certain age and you just go, oh, fuck off. Helen Mirren said that. She said, I wish I'd known when I was younger to instigate the fuck off with more monotonous regularity that I only discovered as an older woman. Words to that effect. And I was like, you know what? She's kind of right there. In fact, not kind of, but extremely right. When you're right, you're right. Oh, baby girls and baby boys. The dress box was awkward. How could she have known the store would have its own pink cardboard boxes with miladies written across them in purple handwriting? A dead giveaway. She felt a fool for mentioning a wedding when he hadn't mentioned it, and she ought to remember that. So much else had been said, all written, such fondness and yearning expressed, that the actual marrying seemed just to have been overlooked. The way you might speak about getting up in the morning and not having breakfast, though you certainly intended to have it. Nevertheless, she should have kept her mouth shut. She saw Mr. Macaulay walking in the opposite direction up the other side of the street. That was all right. Even if he had met her head on, he would never have noticed the box she carried. He would have raised a finger to his hat and passed her by, presumably noticing that she was his housekeeper, but possibly not. He had other things on his mind, and for all anybody knew might be looking at some town other than the one they saw. Every working day, and sometimes forgetfully on holidays or Sundays, he got dressed in one of his three-piece suits and his light overcoat, or his heavy overcoat, and his grey fedora, and his well-polished shoes, and walked from Exhibition Road uptown to the office he still maintained over what had been the harness and luggage store. It was spoken of as an insurance office, though it was quite a long time since he had actively sold insurance. And sometimes people climbed the stairs to see him, maybe to ask some question about their policies, or more likely about lot boundaries, the history of some piece of real estate in town or farm out in the country. His office was full of maps, old and new, and he liked nothing better than to lay them out and get into a discussion that expanded far beyond the question asked. Yes, my little baby boys. 3 or 4 times a day he emerged and walked the street as now. During the war, he'd put the McLaughlin Buick up on blocks in the barn and walked everywhere to set an example. He still seemed to be setting an example 15 years later. Hands clasped behind his back, he was like a kind landlord inspecting his property, or a preacher happy to observe his flock. Little bye-bye, doing little tweets while you snooze. Snoozy boys. Yes, the turkey's here, Kermie. The turkey. Of course, half the people that he met had no idea who he was. The town had changed. Even in the time Johanna had been here, trade was moving out to the highway, where there was a new discount store and a Canadian Tire and a motel with a lounge and topless dancers. Some downtown shops had tried to spruce themselves up with pink or mauve or olive paint, but already that paint was curling on the old brick and some of the interiors were empty. Milady's was almost certain to follow suit. If Johanna was the woman in there, what would she have done? She'd never have gotten in so many elaborate evening dresses for a start. What instead? If you made the switch to cheaper clothes, you'd only be putting yourself in competition with Callahan's in the discount place, and there probably wasn't trade enough to go around. So what about going into fancy baby clothes, children's clothes, trying to pull in the grandmothers and aunts who had the money and would spend it for that kind of thing? Forget about the mothers who would go to Callahan's, having less money and more sense. But if it was her in charge, Johanna, she would never be able to pull in anybody. She could see what needed to be done and how, and she could round up and supervise people to do it. but she could never charm or entice. Take it or leave it would be her attitude. No doubt they would leave it. It was the rare person who took to her, and she'd been aware of that for a long time. Sabbatha certainly hadn't shed any tears when she said goodbye, though you could say Johanna was the nearest thing Sabbatha had to a mother since her own mother had died. Mr. Macaulay would be upset when she left because she'd given good service, and it would be hard to replace her. But that would be all he thought about. Both he and his granddaughter were spoiled and self-centred. As for the neighbours, they would no doubt rejoice. Johanna had had problems on both sides of the property. On one side it was the neighbour's dog digging in her garden, burying and retrieving his supply of bones, which he could better have done at home. And on the other it was the black cherry tree, which was on the Macaulay's property but bore most of its cherries on the branches hanging over into the next yard. In both cases she had raised a fuss and won. The dog was tied up, and the other neighbours left the cherries alone. If she got up on the stepladder, she could reach well over into their yard. But they no longer chased the birds out of the branches, and it made a difference to the crop. Surely they could have split them 50-50, come to some reasonable arrangement. Honestly, it's ridiculous. Kermie's tail is so long now, he has trouble turning around with it. He sort of flips it around and drags it around. It's cute, but I can see it annoys him sometimes. What can I say? You're a long-tailed bird. Yeah, pretty boy. Very pretty boy. Mr. Macaulay would have let them pick. He would have let the dog dig. He would let himself be taken advantage of. Part of the reason was that these were new people and lived in new houses, and so he preferred not to pay attention to them. Good boy. At one time there had been just 3 or 4 large houses on Exhibition Road. Across from them were the fairgrounds where the fall fair was held, officially called the Agricultural Exhibition, hence the name. And in between were orchard trees, small meadows. Might have to shut my laundry door, it's quite noisy, isn't it? Probably due for a new washing machine soon. That one's about 11. When did I get it? In 2011. So it's about 15 years old then. Was it 2011 or later? I thought it was about 11 years old, which would mean I got it in 2015. My goodness, time is passing so fast. It's astonishing. Hey, pretty boys. Oh, my pretty boys. A dozen years ago or so, that land had been sold off in regular lot sizes and houses had been put up, small houses in alternating styles, one kind with an upstairs and the other kind without. Some were already getting to look pretty shabby. Yeah, pretty boy. There were only a couple of houses whose occupants Mr. Macaulay knew and was friendly with. The schoolteacher, Miss Hood, and her mother, and the Schultzes, who ran the shoe repair shop. The Schultzes' daughter, Edith, was or had been Sabbath's great friend. It was natural, with their being in the same grade at school, at least last year, once Sabbatha had been held back and living near each other. Mr. Macaulay hadn't minded. Maybe he had some idea that Sabbatha would be removed before long to live a different sort of life in Toronto. The only trouble with brushing with hydrogen peroxide and baking soda is I'm getting a kind of a salty taste in my mouth from the baking soda. Oh. Johanna would not have chosen Edith, though the girl was never rude, never troublesome when she came to the house, and she was not stupid. That might have been the problem. She was smart, and Sabbatha was not so smart. She had made Sabbatha sly. That was all over now. Now that the cousin, Roxanne, Mrs. Huber, had shown up, the Schultz girl was all part of Sabbatha's childish past. I'm going to arrange to get all your furniture out to you on the train as soon as they can take it, and prepaid as soon as they tell me what it will cost. I have been thinking you will need it now. I guess it will not be that much of a surprise that I thought you would not mind it if I went along to be of help to you, as I hope I can be. This was the letter she had taken to the post office before she went to make arrangements at the railway station. It was the first letter she had ever sent to him directly. The others had been slipped in with the letters she made Sabbatha write, and his to her had come in the same way, tidily folded and with her name, Johanna, typed on the back of the page, so there would be no mistaking. That kept the people in the post office from catching on, and it never hurt to save a stamp. Of course, Sabbatha could have reported to her grandfather, or even read what was written to Johanna. But Sabbatha was no more interested in communicating with the old man than she was in letters, the writing or the receiving of them. The furniture was stored back in the barn, which was just a town barn, not a real barn with animals and a granary. When Johanna got her first look at everything a year or so ago, she found it grimy with dust and splattered with pigeon droppings. The pieces had been piled in carelessly without anything to cover them. She had hauled what she could carry out into the yard, leaving space in the barn to get at the big pieces she couldn't carry, the sofa and buffet and china cabinet and dining table. The bedstead she could take apart. She went at the wood with soft dust rags, then lemon oil, and when she was finished, it shone like candy, maple candy. It was bird's eye maple wood. It looked glamorous to her, like satin bedspreads and blonde hair. Glamorous and modern, a total contrast to all the dark wood and irksome carving of the furniture she cared for in the house. And she thought of it as his furniture then, and still did when she got it out this Wednesday. She'd put old quilts over the bottom layer to protect everything there from what was piled on top, and sheets over what was on top to protect that from the birds. And as a result, there was only a light dust. But she wiped everything and lemon oiled it before she put it back, protected in the same way to wait for the truck on Friday. Maple wood is very pretty. My daughter bought, oh no, that was mango wood, which was also pretty. She bought her a ukulele in mango wood. So I don't know what I'm talking about. But maple, no, I do actually know what I'm talking about. Maple timber is very nice. I love natural timbers. There's a sparkle and a shine and various intricacies in the way the wood's formed when it was formerly a tree. There's something really beautiful about it, especially if you sand it back and oil it. All my outdoor furniture is looking very grey and washed out and grotty indeed, but I don't really care. They were second hand to begin with, and it's outdoors, it's exposed. But on my inside furniture, I love to bring it back to life and see it shine and gleam again. It's beautiful. Why are you chucking all your food out, Mr. Kermie? It's just a bit ludicrous. Oh, look at the mess he's making. But it's the outside cage, boys, so I don't care what mess you make outside. I've got to clean their inside cages later when I finish this video. I really feel tired today. I don't know why I feel so dreadful. It's swings and roundabouts with my health. Sometimes I'm fabulous and sometimes I'm just a zombie. Well, it's always been that way, even in my childhood. So it is what it is. Dear Mr. Macaulay, I am leaving on the train this afternoon, in brackets, Friday. I realise this is without giving my notice to you, but I will waive my last pay, which would be 3 weeks owing this coming Monday. There is a beef stew on the stove in the double boiler that just needs warming up. Enough there for 3 meals, or maybe could be stretched to a 4th. As soon as it is hot and you have got all you want, put the lid on and put it away in the fridge. Remember, put the lid on at once, not to take chances with it getting spoiled. Regards to you and to Sabitha, and will probably be in touch when I am settled. Johanna Parry. P.S. I have shipped his furniture to Mr. Boudreau as he may need it. Remember to make sure when you reheat there is enough water in bottom part of the double boiler. Mr. Macaulay had no trouble finding out that the ticket Johanna had bought was to Gdynia, Saskatchewan. He phoned the station agent and asked. He could not think how to describe Johanna. Was she old or young looking, thin or moderately heavy? What was the colour of her coat? But that was not necessary when he mentioned the furniture. When this call came through, there were a couple of people in the station waiting for the evening train. The agent tried to keep his voice down at first, but he became excited when he heard about the stolen furniture. What Mr. Macaulay actually said was, "And I believe she took some furniture with her?" He swore that if he had known who she was and what she was up to, he would never have let her set foot on the train. This assertion was heard and repeated and believed, nobody asking how he could have stopped a grown woman who had paid for her ticket unless he had some proof right away that she was a thief. Most people who repeated his words believed that he could and would have stopped her. They believed in the authority of station agents and of upright walking fine old men in three-piece suits like Mr. Macaulay. The beef stew was excellent, as Johanna's cooking always was, but Mr. Macaulay found he could not swallow it. He disregarded the instruction about the lid and left the pot sitting open on the stove and did not even turn off the burner until the water in the bottom pot boiled away and he was alerted by a smell of smoking metal. This was the smell of treachery. He told himself to be thankful at least that Sabbatha was taken care of and he did not have to worry about that. His niece, his wife's cousin actually, Roxanne, had written to tell him that from what she had seen of Sabbatha on her summer visit to Lake Simcoe, the girl was going to take some handling. Frankly, I don't think you and that woman you've hired are going to be up to it when the boys come swarming around. She did not go so far as to ask him whether he wanted another Marcel on his hands, but that was what she meant. He said she would get Sabbatha into a good school where she could be taught manners at least. How about teaching the boys manners, people of Earth? Always bloody victim blaming the girls. Another thing we should say, fuck off to. By the goddess. All the gods, really. Creator and all manifestations of holiness. Who's in charge of sacred space today? It's an enormous, big, white, fluffy cloud above my head. He turned on the television for a distraction, but it was no use. It was the furniture that galled him. It was Ken Boudreau. The fact was that 3 days before, on the very day that Johanna had bought her ticket, as the station agent had now told him, Mr. Macaulay had received a letter from Ken Boudreau asking him to A. advance some money against the furniture belonging to him, Ken Boudreau, and his dead wife Marcel, which was stored in Mr. Macaulay's barn. Or B, if he could not see his way to doing that, to sell the furniture for as much as he could get and send the money as quickly as he could to Saskatchewan. There was no mention of the loans that had already been made by father-in-law to son-in-law, all against the value of this furniture and amounting to more than it could ever be sold for. Could Ken Boudreau have forgotten all about that? Or did he simply hope, and this was more probable, that his father-in-law would have forgotten? We're going to have a musical interlude. It's lovely, Kermie. It's very lovely. It almost sounded like the opening bars of Iris. Bo's sitting there with his head forward looking at me like I'm a maniac. All right, well, you do the whistling since you're the experts in the family. You do the tunes and I'll do the dancing. All right, you ready? Let's go. Tweet, 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 tweet. Bida bing, bida bang, bida bing, bang, bong. I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you, Kermie. You're a wonderful singer. A wonderful singer. And you too, little Bo. Bo was singing his full repertoire this morning. It was glorious. I've got the sunshine, the little sun rays peering through the tree again. It's fading me out to some kind of soft focus glamour photo, but that's okay. Don't need to see the old lady wrinkles and pimples and blemishes and cracked capillaries anyway. Oh, it's a gorgeous day. It's really a gorgeous day, my birdie boys. Right, we'll carry on. Getting hungry for some reason. Guess it's nearly 2:30, something like that. 2:15. He was now, it seemed, the owner of a hotel, but his letter was full of diatribes against the fellow who had formerly owned it and who had misled him as to various particulars. I'm glad I'm getting that tooth fixed on Thursday because it's really starting to hurt bad. I feel like I'm in a perpetual state of fucking dying. What can I say? If I can just get over this hurdle, he said, then I am convinced I can still make a go of it. I hear you, brother. But what was the hurdle? A need for immediate money, but he did not say whether it was owing to the former owner or to the bank or to a private mortgage holder or what. It was the same old story, a desperate, wheedling tone mixed in with some arrogance, some sense of its being what was owed him because of the wounds inflicted on him, the shame suffered on account of Marcel. With many misgivings, but remembering that Ken Boudreau was after all his son-in-law and had fought in the war and had been through God knows what trouble in his marriage, Mr. Macaulay had sat down and written a letter saying that he did not have any idea how to go about getting the best price for the furniture, and it would be very difficult for him to find out, and that he was enclosing a cheque which he could count as an outright personal loan. He wished his son-in-law to acknowledge it as such, and to remember the number of similar loans made in the past, already he believed exceeding any value of the furniture. He was enclosing a list of dates and amounts. Apart from $50 paid nearly 2 years ago, with a promise of regular payments to follow, he had received nothing. His son-in-law must surely understand that as a result of these unpaid and interest-free loans, Mr. Macaulay's income had declined, since he would otherwise have invested the money. He had thought of adding, "I am not such a fool as you seem to think," but decided not to. How am I going to get, we'll do it that way. Slightly eliminate the sun rays. They're lovely, but they're distracting. But decided not to, since that would reveal his irritation and perhaps his weakness. And now look, the man had jumped the gun and enlisted Johanna in his scheme. He'd always be able to get around women, and got hold of the furniture as well as the cheque. Don't know why, but my dry socket's hurting today. It's odd. It's been so good the last few days or week or so. I feel like eating something really yummy to think about what it is I want. This talk of money immediately sets my teeth on edge. I've been financially abused all my life by my own mother and former husband and other fucking Egypts as well, that it just literally triggers me. My whole face hurts just thinking about it. That's probably why it started hurting. Life will be beautiful again. I don't know how, if I shall even live long enough to see it be beautiful again. But it starts from in here. Third eye activation, imagination, determination, perseverance, manifestations, affirmations, and blessings from the gods. Don't forget, everything comes from the gods. Right. She had paid for the shipping herself, the station agent had said. The flashy-looking modern maple stuff had been overvalued in the deals already made, and they would not get much for it, especially when you counted what the railway had charged. If they had been cleverer, they would simply have taken something from the house, one of the old cabinets or parlour settees too uncomfortable to sit on, made and bought in the last century. We've got the sun rays again. That, of course, would have been plain stealing, but what they had done was not far off. He went to bed with his mind made up to prosecute. He woke in the house alone with no smell of coffee or breakfast coming from the kitchen. Instead, there was a whiff of the burned pot still in the air. An autumn chill had settled in all the high-ceilinged forlorn rooms. It had been warm last evening and on preceding evenings. The furnace had not been turned on yet, and when Mr. Macaulay did turn it on, the warm air was accompanied by a blast of cellar damp, of mould and earth and decay. He washed and dressed slowly with forgetful pauses and spread some peanut butter on a piece of bread for his breakfast. He belonged to a generation in which there were men who were said not to be able to even boil water, and he was one of them. Bloody learned helplessness, isn't it? It's awful. He looked out the front windows and saw the trees on the other side of the racetrack was swallowed up in the morning fog, which seemed to be advancing, not retreating, as it should at this hour, across the track itself. He seemed to see in the fog the looming buildings of the old exhibition grounds, homely, spacious buildings like enormous barns. They had stood for years and years unused all through the war, and he forgot what happened to them in the end. Were they torn down or did they fall down? He abhorred the races that took place now, the crowds and the loudspeaker and the illegal drinking and the ruinous uproar of the summer Sundays. When he thought of that, he thought of his poor girl Marcel, sitting on the veranda steps and calling out to grown schoolmates who had got out of their parked cars and were hurrying to see the races. The fuss she made, the joy she expressed at being back in town, the hugging and holding people up, talking a mile a minute, rattling on about childhood days and how she'd missed everybody. She had said that the only thing not perfect about life was missing her husband, Ken, left out west because of his work. She went out there in his sook pyjamas with straggly, uncombed, dyed blonde hair. Her arms and legs were thin, but her face was somewhat bloated, and what she claimed was her tan seemed a sickly brown colour, not from the sun, maybe jaundice. The child had stayed inside and watched television, Sunday cartoons that she was surely too old for. He couldn't tell what was wrong or be sure that anything was. Marcel went away to London to have some female thing done and died in the hospital. When he phoned her husband to tell him, Ken Boudreau said, "What did she take?" If Marcel's mother had been alive still, would things have been any different? The fact was that her mother, when she was alive, had been as bewildered as he was. She'd sat in the kitchen crying while their teenage daughter, locked into her room, had climbed out the window and slid down the veranda roof to be welcomed by carloads of boys. The house was full of a feeling of callous desertion, of deceit. He and his wife had surely been kind parents, driven to the wall by Marcel. Oh yes, it really is that one that hurts. When she had eloped with an airman, they had hoped that she would be all right at last. They had been generous to the two of them, as to the most proper young couple. But it all fell apart. To Johanna Parry he had likewise been generous, and look how she too had gone against him. He walked to town and went into the hotel for his breakfast. The waitress said, "You're bright and early this morning." And while she was still pouring out his coffee, he began to tell her about how his housekeeper had walked out on him without any warning or provocation, not only left her job with no notice, but taken a load of furniture that had belonged to his daughter, that now was supposed to belong to his son-in-law, but didn't really, having been bought with his daughter's wedding money. He told her how his daughter had married an airman, a good-looking, plausible fellow who wasn't to be trusted around the corner. "Excuse me," the waitress said. "I'd love to chat, but I got people waiting on their breakfast. Excuse me." He climbed the stairs to his office, and there, spread out on his desk, were the old maps he had been studying yesterday in an effort to locate exactly the very first burying ground in the county, abandoned, he believed, in 1839. He turned on the light and sat down, but he found he could not concentrate. After the waitress's reproof, or what he took for a reproof, he hadn't been able to eat his breakfast or enjoy his coffee. He decided to go out for a walk to calm himself down. Oh dear goddess. I'm really tired today, people of Earth. I started off all enthusiastic, but I'm fading. We'll read to the next page break. It's 2 or 3 more pages. Like, I don't begrudge it, don't get me wrong. I enjoy my reading stories to you, but just some days I just feel, I just feel unwell. But instead of walking along in his usual way, greeting people and passing a few words with them, he found himself bursting into speech. The minute anybody asked him how he was this morning, he began in a most uncharacteristic, even shameful way. Where are we? Dear goddess, lost the line. I really am drifting. Hold on. Well, hold on, people of Earth. John Mama T can do this. Even shameful way to blurt out his woes. And like the waitress, these people had business to attend to, and they nodded and shuffled and made excuses to get away. The morning didn't seem to be warming up in the way foggy fall mornings usually did. His jacket wasn't warm enough, so he sought the comfort of the shops. The people who had known him the longest were the most dismayed. He had never been anything but reticent. The well-mannered gentleman, his mind on other times, his courtesy a deft apology for privilege, which was a bit of a joke because privilege was mostly in his recollections and not apparent to others. He should have been the last person to air wrongs or ask for sympathy. He hadn't when his wife died, or even when his daughter died. Yet here he was, pulling out some letter, asking if it wasn't a shame the way this fellow had taken him for money over and over again, And even now, when he'd taken pity on him once more, the fellow had connived with his housekeeper to steal the furniture. Some thought it was his own furniture he was talking about. They believed the old man had been left without a bed or a chair in his house. They advised him to go to the police. "That's no good, that's no good," he said. "How can you get blood from a stone?" He went into the shoe repair shop and greeted Herman Schultz. "Do you remember those boots you resold for me, the ones I got in England? You resold them 4 or 5 years ago." The shop was like a cave with shaded bulbs hanging down over various workplaces. It was abominably ventilated, but its manly smells of glue and leather and shoe blacking and fresh-cut felt soles and rotted old ones were comfortable to Mr. Macaulay. Here his neighbour, Herman Schultz, a sallow, expert, spectacled workman, bent-shouldered, was occupied in all seasons, driving in iron nails and clinch nails, and with a wicked hooked knife, cutting the desired shapes out of leather. The felt was cut by something like a miniature circular saw. The buffers made a scuffing noise, and the sandpaper wheel made a rasp, and the emery stone on a tool's edge sang high like a mechanical insect, and the sewing machine punched the leather in an earnest, industrial rhythm. All the sounds and smells and precise activities of the place had been familiar to Mr. Macaulay for years, but never identified or reflected upon before. Now Herman, in his blackened leather apron with a boot in one hand, straightened up, smiled, nodded, and Mr. Macaulay saw the man's whole life in this cave. He wished to express sympathy or admiration or something more that he didn't understand. "Yes, I do," Herman said. "They were nice boots, fine boots. You know, I got them on my wedding trip. I got them in England. I can't remember now where. Ow. Ow. Oh, gosh. Stabbing pain in my ear out of nowhere. Apropos of nothing, I'm just going to stab you in your ear, Tanya Arons. Okay. Nervous system. Fuck you. Right, where were we? I can't remember now where, but it wasn't in London. I remember you telling me. You did a fine job on them. They're still doing well. Fine job, Herman. You do a good job here. You do honest work. That's good. Herman took a quick look at the boot on his hand. Mr. Macaulay knew that the man wanted to get back to his work, but he couldn't let him. "I just had an eye-opener, a shock. Have you?" The old man pulled out the letter and began to read bits of it aloud with interjections of dismal laughter. "Bronchitis. He says he's sick with bronchitis. He doesn't know where to turn. I don't know who to turn to. Well, he always knows who to turn to. When he's run through everything else, turn to me. A few hundred just till I get on my feet, begging and pleading with me, and all the time he's conniving with my housekeeper. Did you see that? She stole a load of furniture and went off out west with it. They were hand and glove. This is a man I've saved the skin of time and time again, and never a penny back. No, I have to be honest and say $50. $50 out of hundreds and hundreds of thousands. He was in the Air Force in the war, you know. Those shortish fellows. They were often in the Air Force, strutting around, thinking they were war heroes. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, but I think the war spoiled some of those fellows. They never could adjust to life afterwards. But that's not enough of an excuse, is it? I can't excuse him forever because of the war. No, you can't. I knew he wasn't to be trusted the first time I met him. That's the extraordinary thing. I knew it, and I let him rook me all the same. There are people like that. You take pity on them just for being the crooks they are. My mother's con artist husband was very good at eliciting pity and falsely slandering me into the bargain. Fucking bastard. I'm glad he's dead. Did not deserve to take up oxygen on this planet, that foul demonic creature. I got him his insurance job out there. I had some connections. Of course he mucked it up. A bad egg. Some just are. You're right about that. Mrs. Schultz was not in the store that day. Usually she was the one at the counter taking in the shoes and showing them to her husband and reporting back what he said, making out the slips and taking the payment when the restored shoes were handed back. Mr. Macaulay remembered that she had had some kind of operation during the summer. Your wife isn't in today. Is she well? She thought she'd better take it easy today. I've got my girl in. Herman Schultz nodded towards the shelves to the right. Okay, this way. To the right of the counter, where the finished shoes were displayed. Mr. Macaulay turned his head and saw Edith, the daughter, whom he hadn't noticed when he came in. A childishly thin girl with straight black hair who kept her back to him, rearranging the shoes. That was just the way she had seemed to slide in and out of sight when she came to his house as Sabbatha's friend. You never got a good look at her face. You're going to help your father out now, Mr. Macaulay said. You're through with school? It's Saturday, said Edith, half turning, smiling faintly. So it is. Well, it's a good thing to help your father anyway. You must take care of your parents. They've worked hard and they're good people. With a slight air of apology, as if he knew he was being sententious, Mr. Macaulay said, Honour thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long in the... Edith said something not for him to hear. She said, shoe repair shop? I'm taking up your time. I'm imposing on you, said Mr. Macaulay. Sadly, you have work to do. There's no need for you to be sarcastic, said Edith's father, when the old man had gone. He told Edith's mother all about Mr. Macaulay at supper. He's not himself, he said. Something's come over him. Maybe a little stroke, she said. Since her own operation for gallstones, she spoke knowledgeably and with a placid satisfaction about the afflictions of other people. Now that Sabbatha had gone, vanished into another sort of life, that had, it seemed, always been waiting for her, Edith had reverted to being the person she had been before Sabbatha came here. Old for her age, diligent, critical. After 3 weeks at high school, she knew that she was going to be very good at all the new subjects: Latin, algebra, English literature. She believed that her cleverness was going to be recognised and acclaimed, and an important future would open out for her. We all think that when we're young, don't we? We don't factor in the evil and the bastardry of people we encounter in our spheres of influence and operation. Just saying. The last year's silliness with Sabbatha was slipping out of sight. Yet when she thought about Johanna's going off out west, she felt a chill from her past, an invasive alarm. She tried to bang a lid down on that, but it wouldn't stay. As soon as she had finished washing the dishes, she went off to her room with the book they had been assigned for literature class, David Copperfield. She was a child who had never received more than tepid reproofs from her parents, old parents to have a child of her age, which was said to account for her being the way she was. But she felt in perfect accord with David in his unhappy situation. She felt that she was one like him, one who might as well have been an orphan, because she would probably have to run away, go into hiding, fend for herself when the truth became known and her past shut off her future. Now I'm going to break there, although it's intriguing and I'd like to carry on, but I'm going to break there because I really am feeling a bit woeful today. And so be another long video tomorrow. So blessed be from the sacred space at Titania's realm, where the birds are singing, the children are playing. It's a bit noisier than it was, but that's okay. I'd much rather children play and be joyful. It's normal. And the skies are blue and the trees are full of tulip blossoms. And there's big white fluffy clouds which you can see above my head, and it's all really quite wonderful. So have a beautiful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the spiraling blue planet, and much love from Titania's realm. Bye for now.